Ladies and gentlemen,
now on air.
It's a musical, and nothing's as amazing as a musical.
It's the Musical Madness Hour with Mike B.
South Africa's best kept secret.
On Qube Radio.
Your starlet won't quit, big hit musical.
Keep it Qube.
It's just gone 7 p.m. UK time. Good evening. It's Sunday, the 11th of April, and it is indeed time for the Musical Madness Hour. Now, don't forget that coming up a little bit later on, it is the end of the weekend all request show, but we may start about 5 or 10 minutes later than usual because today, my friends, I have a very exciting edition of the Musical Madness Hour. Now, as you know, I normally spotlight a specific musical and play songs from that cast recording amongst others. However, tonight, I'm doing things a little bit differently. On Friday, I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down, virtually of course, with one of my absolute idols, South African theatre legend, Jonathan Roxmouth. Now, I have been following Jonathan, and I mean, I don't mean in like the creepy sort of physical way, but more in terms of his career. And throughout the years, he's gone on to play countless incredible roles, such as Vince Fontaine in Teen Angel in Grease. He's done Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. He's done Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, to name but a few. But his most notable role has got to be that of the Phantom in The Phantom of the Opera, for which he's been part of the most recent world tour. And amazingly, listen to this, at just 24 years old, Jonathan became the youngest English-speaking Phantom ever. So, for the next hour or so, you'll be hearing what Jonathan had to say about his achievements, shows, and albums.
It's the Musical Madness Hour with Mike B on Qube Radio. Keep it Qube.
Jonathan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Nice to see you again after I don't know how long.
Now, your professional debut was back in 2006 when you played Teen Angel and Vince Fontaine in Grease, after having done a few musicals for Northcliffe High School. You then later went on to play Danny, obviously in the same musical for the Peter Turin Productions. Talk us through the experiences of playing one role and then going in a couple of years later and playing a whole different role in the same sort of musical.
Well, it's interesting because I was so wide-eyed and, for want of a better term, just dumb about how it all worked. I actually was the Danny understudy when I was doing Grease. And we'd started going through scene work, like the drive-in scene and all that. But strangely enough, the director said to me, you're still too fat to play Danny. So we need to get you, in shape for that. And the following year, I did the Buddy Holly story for him. And I actually lost a lot of weight to look like Buddy Holly. And he said, now you're ready to play Danny. And what was so weird is that was 2007. And 2010 came along and I auditioned for that one. And that was the big version from the UK. It was the UK tour that came to South Africa. And then from there, we went on our first international tour. And I'd never been overseas with a show before. So it was a whole bunch of firsts. There were the odd moments during that second run where I found I was mouthing along to Beauty School Dropout because I still remembered the words. So it's amazing what sticks with you. But it was a very good lesson in knowing your place, I think, in the beginning, and then going up to the next, level where you're playing the lead. I was very jealous not to be Teen Angel in their second production because they did one hell of a production number compared to what we did at the Barnyard.
Your story's sad to tell, a teenage ne'er-do-well, most mixed up non-delinquent on the block. Your future so unclear now. What's left of your career now? Can't even get a trade-in on your smock. dropout. No graduation day for you, beauty school dropout. Missed your midterms and flunked shampoo. Well, at least you could have taken time to wash and clean your clothes up after spending all that dough to have the doctor fix your nose up. L'chaim, baby, get moving. You're not cut out to hold a job, better forget it. Who wants their hair done by a slob? Now your bangs are curled, still the world is cruel. Turn in that tease and comb and go back to high school. Baby, don't sweat it. You're not cut out to hold a job, better forget it. Who wants their hair done by a slob? Well, they couldn't teach you anything. You think you're such a looker, but no customer would go to you unless she was a hooker. Baby, don't sweat it. You're not cut out to hold a job, better forget it. Who wants their hair done by a slob? Now your bangs are curled, your lashes twirled, and still the world is cruel. Might as well go back to that mold chopping. The sky.
On your Stage by Stage Unplugged album, you talk about the handful of keys and Beauty and the Beast scenario.
Yeah.
We have to touch briefly on that scenario because when I saw you live and you spoke about it, I was rolling in my chair. I was wetting myself from laughter. It was hilarious. Touch briefly and let the listeners know, what was that situation?
When Beauty and the Beast came to South Africa and they were auditioning, I don't know why I knew, but I knew that, you know, my part was Gaston. He was only in, I think, 5 or 6 scenes. And at that point, I was in Cape Town performing a 2-piano show called A Handful of Keys, but they were rehearsing in Johannesburg. So I said to the team, you know, look, I can be there for the first and last week of the 5-week rehearsal period. The middle 3 weeks, I'm actually in Cape Town, but I figure, you know, I can fly for the days that you need me. I can be in the morning sessions for the rehearsals. And they said, do you agree to that? And I said, yes, of course. And again, I was young and dumb. And the contract arrived and they said, because in the room they said, do you agree that you'll come up for any days we need you? And I said, absolutely. And it was all being recorded. So the contract came and they needed me for every single day of rehearsal. I then booked 27 flights from Cape Town to Joburg. Now that's a 2-hour flight. So my average day would be, I would wake up at 4, to leave at 5, to be at the airport at 5, to fly at 6, to land in Joburg at 8, to be at rehearsals by 9, to start by 10, then I'd leave at 3, to be at the airport by 4, to fly at 5, I have to try and remember this now, 5, to land at 7 p.m. for an 8 p.m. performance. And I did that for about 3 weeks. Except for Sundays. And out of all of that, I only missed one flight because the flight was cancelled. But, you know, in retrospect, aside from being a fantastic story to tell, if I hadn't have done that and if I hadn't been part of Beauty and the Beast, I don't think that my career would have turned out the way it did.
Talking of memories and this Gaston and Handful of Keys, you then went on to play Munkerstrap in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats. What made you decide to put memory on the Musicals in Concert album, which obviously Munkerstrap doesn't perform memory, does he?
Yeah. But I used to watch Grisabella perform it every night on stage, and I think the jealousy got to me in the end. But originally, I did, my third album was My Lloyd Webber, and I'd always wanted to perform memory because aside from being a song that I'd grown up with, you know, on that Andrew Lloyd Webber Premier Collection, it's the black CD. and Elaine Page is on there. Michael Crawford's there doing Music of the Night, and Ray Shell is doing Starlight. And anyway, I wanted to do a different version of it, and the arranger Brian Schimmel came up with such a wonderful idea incorporating electric guitar instead of synth. And I was like, oh, let's just do it. It's one of my favorites. And from that day to this, aside from Music of the Night, it's the most requested number whenever I do a concert.
Midnight, not a sound from the pavement, as the moon lost her memory. She is smiling alone in the lamplight. The withered leaves collect at my feet, and the wind begins to moan. Memory, all alone in the moonlight, I can smile at the old days. I was beautiful then. I remember the time I knew what happiness was. Let the memory live again. Every street lamp seems to hit a fatalistic warning. Someone mutters and the street lamp gutters, and soon it will be morning. Daylight, I must wait for the sunrise. I must think of a new life, and I mustn't give in. When the dawn comes, tonight will be a memory too, and a new day will begin. Out ends of smoky days, the still cold smell of morning. The street lamp dies, another night is over, another day is dawning. Touch me, it's so easy to leave me all alone with my memory of my days in the sun. If you touch me, tonight will be a memory too. Look, a new day has
Love Qube Radio? Then follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and visit our website at quberadio.co.uk. Keep it Qube.
Now, as we've mentioned, you've played countless remarkable roles in numerous musicals, but is there one role that you long to do, or have you already done it?
This is an interesting question because I've gone through this sort of existential crisis since being home now during this break of the tour, and Phantom was always the role that I wanted to do, and it's happened now. And a friend of mine I had lunch with the other day said, "Well, what do you do now?" And the question sort of hit me very, very hard. I go one of two ways. I'd either want to do something classical like Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady or Fagin in Oliver, one of those, classic juggernaut roles. Otherwise, I'd like to think that my best role hasn't been written yet. It's nice to think of roles that already exist that still technically belong to other people. Phantom belongs to Crawford, and Judas belongs to Murray Head, and Danny belongs to not Travolta but to Barry Bostwick. I'd like to think that I'd have an opportunity to originate something. I'd love to end up in New York, be part of a workshop that then goes out of town to Boston and then comes back into New York and becomes the toast of Broadway. And that's also the only way you can win a Tony Award is with original shows or revivals. Absolutely. So who knows? That's what I'd wish for, something brand new.
Now, we've spoken about Phantom. Your role in Phantom, you originated the role in South Africa, let's say. I mean, obviously, you've not originated the role. That was Crawford who did it phenomenally. You've now gone on to play the Phantom in the world tour. And not only that, but you first performed Phantom, if I may say, at 25 years old. And that made you the youngest English-speaking Phantom at that time. Do you still hold that title?
I do, but I was actually 24. Little known fact, it was 2011. And, you said I originated in South Africa. I have to pay special tribute to our original Phantom, who's actually Andre Schwartz. Yeah, he was coming back for the second round of Phantom in 2011, 2012, which I was part of. And originally the setup was I was Raoul, 6 shows a week. And then I would do the 2 performances on the Sunday as the Phantom. So, I mean, I really did have my bread buttered on both sides. For reasons that I don't really think are necessary to go into. He decided to leave the production for, very good reasons. And I was sort of on probation for a while. They said, would you like to be our Phantom indefinitely? But it wasn't official yet. So I still had to re-audition basically in front of a live audience every night. And again, in terms of learning your place, it was important, I think, to realize that it was not mine yet. I had to earn in a different way now. And the industry was not particularly kind. They cooked up this strange rivalry between Andre and I, despite the fact that the first night of rehearsal, Andre and I were on a balcony somewhere having wine, chatting about the show. And, there was none of that. Yeah. But the perception in the industry was, oh, Andre's bowed out and Jonathan and he don't get on because they both want the role. It was a load of crap. It's not even nonsense. It was crap. That's the only word for it. And even now to this day, he and I, chat regularly. So yeah, he was the originator. But in terms of your question, being part of the world tour, that is for a little kid from Randburg, that is a massive thing to get your head around. The fact that we were able to do that when the rest of the world effectively stopped was even more bizarre. And, last year we were not only the only production of Phantom running, but for some time we were the only production in the world. Yep. And that was, on the surface of it, of course, I was acutely aware that this was an honor that I would, want to talk about for the rest of my life. However, what must be said is that the stress and the pressure of that, people don't realize. And at no point do I ever want to seem ungrateful. Of course, I'm grateful. Yeah. But I would be lying if I said that there were moments that, if there weren't moments that I just sat and went, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. When you are having to fly the flag and keep the torch going for everyone else to, because you will be back on stage soon. We'll be here waiting for you, sort of thing. It was hard. It was really hard being away from home in that position. But I look back on it, and if ever there was a perfect musical with the perfect timing, it was about a man who wants to be on his own and wearing a mask. It was the perfect sort of blend of circumstance, reality, and fantasy. And hopefully, moving forward, more people can relate to the Phantom than ever before.
Night time sharpens, heightens each sensation. Darkness stirs and wakes imagination. Silently the senses abandon their defenses. Slowly, gently, night unfurls its splendor. Grasp it, sense it, tremulous and tender. Turn your face away from the garish light of day. Turn your thoughts away from cold, unfeeling light, and listen to the music of the night. Close your eyes and surrender to your darkest dreams. Purge your thoughts of the life you knew before. Close your eyes, let your spirit start to soar. And you live as you've never lived before. Softly, deftly, music shall caress you. Hear it, feel it, secretly possess you. Open up your mind, let your fantasies unwind in this darkness which you know you cannot fight. The darkness of the music of the night. Let your mind start a journey through a strange new world. Leave all thoughts of the world you knew before. Let your soul take you where you long to be. Only then can you belong to me. Floating, falling, sweet intoxication. Touch me, trust me, savor each sensation. Let the dream begin. Let your darker side give in to the power of the music that I write. The power of the music of the night. You alone can make my song take flight. Help me make the music of the
It's the Musical Madness Hour with Mike B on Qube Radio. Keep it Qube.
Now, going into 2014, you played Joe Gillis in Sunset Boulevard. And I remember watching it at the Peter Turin Theatre at Monte Cassino and just being in absolute awe of yourself, of Angela Killian, who played Norma, of James Borthwick, who played Max. Talk us through this next track, which is As If We Never Said Goodbye, which is in the musical actually performed by Norma and features on your Musicals in Concert album. And why did you select, and this is a question that we have amongst our theatre friends group, why that song and not the song Sunset Boulevard?
Well, for the listeners that don't know what the Pity Terrine Theatre is, what made this production of Sunset Boulevard really special is that it's what we call a bonsai musical, because the theatre itself is 395 seats or something. It's a very small theatre. And Sunset is actually a very big show. And the production team did an extraordinary job of condensing it down onto the small stage with a reduced cast, a conceptualized set, which was basically a staircase and a little balcony around an empty space.
Yeah. And you had the curtains that would go around.
Oh yes,
on
there was
rail.
a cyclorama on a sort of thing that traveled, and projection like an old movie. That was the concept. So that's why that production was special. And again, I spent every performance watching Norma sing the song that tore the house down. And another bit of trivia, Angela was also my Grisabella in Cats. So I think we're starting to notice a pattern. Every song I watch her sing, I want to sing on my albums. But the reason I chose As If We Never Said Goodbye and not Sunset is so specific to the show that out of context, those lyrics talking about, dreams are not enough to win a war, they're always keeping score, beneath the tan the battle rages. It just didn't travel well away from the context that it was written for. Whereas As If We Never Said Goodbye, even though she's talking about the cardboard scenes, the painted trees, the sound here, even though she's singing about all of that stuff, the song was just, in my opinion, it's the most beautiful song in the show. Again, it didn't matter that it's written necessarily for a female character and now a male is singing it. There was a universalness, that's the word, that made me go, well, I want to sing that. Also, I don't know many men who have sung it before. So let me kill all these birds with one stone. And I'm very glad we did, because from that album, we then did it live at the Teatro in the Musicals in Concert that you're mentioning. I felt that the song still had the same impact in a massive 2,000-seater the way it did in a 400-seater. And that's a testament to the writing. So that's why I did it.
I don't know why I'm frightened. I know my way around here. The cardboard trees, the painted scenes, the sound here. Yes, a world to rediscover. And I'm not in any hurry. And I need a moment. The whispered conversations in overcrowded hallways. The atmosphere as thrilling here as always. Madness. Feel the magic in the making. Why everything's as if we never said goodbye. I've spent so many mornings just trying to resist you. I'm trembling now, you can't know how I've missed you. Missed the fairy tale adventures in this ever-spinning playground. We were young together. I'm coming out of makeup. The light's already burning. Not long until the cameras will start turning. close. Feel the magic in the making. Yes, everything's as if we never said goodbye. I don't want to be alone. It's all in the past. This world's waited long enough. I've come home at last, and this time will be bigger and brighter than we knew it. So watch me fly. We all know I can do it. Can I stop my hands from shaking? Has there ever been a moment with so much to live for? The whispered conversations in overcrowded hallways. So much to say, not just today, but always. We'll have early morning madness. We'll have magic in the making. Why, everything's as if we never said goodbye. Yes, everything's as if we never said goodbye.
You've performed alongside some of the most influential people in musical theatre, not only in South Africa, but in the world. And who would you say is firstly, your most memorable male partner, and secondly, your most memorable female partner?
Well, that's easy. When I did Beauty and the Beast, I had a partner, just Gaston and LeFou.
Yeah.
And my particular LeFou was a performer called Sabu Radebe. He was the first black LeFou in the world. But he also had a whole bunch of tricks up his sleeve in terms of physical comedy that the two of us, from our first audition together, because they auditioned us together, we instinctively knew what the other was about to do, so we could anticipate. And I remember in the audition, at the end of the number, I turned my back on him and he instinctively jumped up into a piggy bank and we did a spin. He flew off and he landed in my arms. This was in an audition. But the panel just went, "Did you guys prepare?" And I was like, "No, I don't know what that was." And he and I had easily the best time I've ever had in a musical. He was generous, he was kind, he was patient with my inexperience, he was funny, and he was one of the most instinctive comedic performers I've ever worked with. And he's the only person, by the way, that I've shared an award with from the same show.
And now going from Spoo, your most memorable male partner, let's go to the female. I mean, on the world tour, you perform with many actresses who play Christine Dyer. Any of those that you would say is your most memorable?
They're all memorable in their own way. I mean, Claire was my original international Christine. Megan Pacherno was a very, very special part of this last tour for so many, many reasons. And then Claire came back, obviously, and our alternates have been wonderful. Clara, Vadir, Caitlin Finney. I also managed to work with Kaylee Ann Voorhees. You know, that's all in its own realm. If I step back, there's a very specific reason why Bethany Dixon, I'd say, is my most memorable partner, because when we first started out, I met her when we were doing Grease. She was Sandy, I was Danny. So we worked together a lot closer than any of the other musicals I've done, because Phantom and Christine have a few moments here and there, but we're not together the way she's together with Raoul all the time, for instance. But Bethany and I started when we were babies. You know, when we were doing that production of Grease, we were so inexperienced. we were finding our way through this brand new principal role and the expectations that come with that. We had just an insane chemistry. We had the same sense of humor, and we saw the best and worst of each other during the entire run. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean as growing performers.
Absolutely.
And we remain very, very good friends to this day. But I do remember our first performance in Cape Town, where the overture started, and the overture starts dum, dum, dum. Those were the only 2-3 notes that managed to get out. I was on one portal on that side, she was on the other on that side. We were on a raised portal, and we could just see each other. And we both just went, when the audience started screaming. And I'll never forget that, because we knew exactly what we were thinking. And I really would love to do another show with her one day. Who knows what that could be.
You're in the mix with Qube Radio. Back-to-back hits from across the decades. Whatever you do, wherever you go, keep it Qube.
It's around about 35 minutes past 7 UK time. It's Sunday the 11th of April, and we are slap bang in the middle of the Musical Madness Hour here on Qube Radio, and it's a very special one this evening, ladies and gentlemen, because I am interviewing the incredible Jonathan Roxmouth. And don't forget that coming up a little bit later than usual this evening, at around about 10 past 8 UK time, it is the end of the weekend all request show. So head on over to the Qube Radio social chat Facebook page and get your requests in, and then I'll be joined by the hilarious Matt, who will be with me all the way up until 10 p.m. But without further ado, my friends, let's get straight back into the interview with Jonathan Roxmouth.
You're listening to Qube Radio, playing the best music online, on app, and on your smart speaker. Sponsored by Wilton Locks Garden Village, Wilton Locks, Northamptonshire.
Now, after Sunset Boulevard, you went on to perform as Tony in West Side Story, and you feature the song Something's Coming on your Stage by Stage Unplugged album. How was the experience of playing Tony? I mean, most of us have grown up with the West Side Story musical movie. Yeah. They're now making a whole remake. What was the experience of playing such an iconic role as Tony?
Well, I initially didn't put myself forward to audition because I'm actually not right for Tony. I'm a tall baritone. I'm not a young sort of twinky tenor, which is what they normally go for. But this production, they did a whole bunch of new things with it. It was not a replica production, so there's brand new choreography. They wanted it slightly more dark and dangerous, and they wanted it, more ostensibly like a gang. So I mean, my Tony had tattoos like Adam Levine, denim shirt, that kind of thing. And I kept saying to the director, I'm not a Tony though. He said, that's why we want you. We want to change the archetype and make it relevant. And I'm not always a fan of people saying they want to make classic musicals relevant, because it implies that they aren't. But I think the audience needs to be reintroduced to them in a specific way, especially the new audience that they went after for this production. All of that aside, I'm generally the first person to start crying in a sitz probe. The sitz probe is where the orchestra plays the music for the first time and the cast sings along. I was not prepared for that sitz probe. Both times, I did in Joburg and in Cape Town. I got so emotional both times because West Side Story was my mother's favorite musical. Okay. She's no longer with us, so that's why it hits me every time. It was a very visceral experience to be part of that production, and the scale of that. I'm sure you saw with the balconies and the bulbs.
Oh, it was remarkable.
People Google the Fugard Theatre production of West Side Story. You'll see what we're talking about. It was monumental, and I had a very, very wonderful Maria in Lynelle Kennett. I think looking back on West Side Story, I was initially warned about this aspect of the role, but I just went along because I wanted to sing with an orchestra. Tony is the most boring part in that show. He does so much work for such little reward, because all his best moments are in Act 1. All Maria's best moments are in Act 2. And when the curtain calls come along, or when people leave the theatre to remember, that's all they remember. Act 1 disappears. It was, again, valuable experience for me, having gone from productions like Sweeney Todd and Phantom, where Act 2 is the real meat of the role, to this time where it's not that I felt like it was a thankless part, but it was a cruelly forgettable role. And Larry Kurt, who played it originally, said exactly the same thing. So I know I've got the right end of the stick.
Could be something due any day. I will know right away, soon as it shows. It may come cannonballing down from the sky, gleaming its eye bright as a rose. Who knows? It's only just out of reach, down the block on a beach, under a tree. I got a feeling there's a miracle due, gonna come true, coming to me. Could it be? Yes, it could. Something's coming, something good, if I can wait. Something's coming, I don't know what it is, but it is gonna be great. With a click, with a shock, phone'll jingle, door'll knock, open the latch. Something's coming, don't know when, but it's soon. Catch the moon, one-handed catch. Around the corner, or whistling down the river. Come on, deliver to me. Will it be? Yes, it will. Maybe just by holding still, it'll be there. Come on, something, come on in. Don't be shy, meet a guy, pull up a chair. The air is humming, and something great is coming. It's only just out of reach, down the block on a beach. Maybe tonight, maybe tonight, maybe tonight, maybe tonight.
We spoke about going into the history books for being the youngest Phantom, but there was also another sort of entrance into the history books that you had, Jonathan, back in 2015, when you actually became the first South African artist to headline a series of Broadway concerts at the Monte Cassino Teatro Theatre. It was titled From the Footlights, which is also the name of your first album, if memory serves correctly, and from which the next track comes. Talk us through the preparations of coming up with the sort of songs that you're going to feature as your first one-man Broadway show, and what it was like to once again be put into the history books.
That was not my idea. I have to give credit where credit's due. Brian Hill, who was the manager at the Teatro, loved the album From the Footlights, and he said, it's such a waste for this to just be on the CD. You should do these songs live. Why don't you come and do a show at the Teatro? And I mean, my head was just like, no ways. There's just no ways. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, he's a smart man. He wouldn't suggest it if he didn't think it would work. So I then did what I generally try to do, is I then get a team around me who know more about the stuff than I do and make me look good. It's the Richard Branson principle, surround yourself with people who are better than you so you can learn. And I got, my friend Wesley Lauder to direct. I got Brian Schimmel to do the arrangements and conduct. He'd also done the album. I got Dennis Hutchinson on lights. I got, Richard Smith. I got a whole bunch of people who ultimately taught me the template that I still use to this day in terms of putting a concert together, in terms of the number one thing that an audience must never do at your concert is wonder why you're singing a certain song. That can either be because the bit of linking script before it is not good, or the song is not a good fit for you. All of those factors, how to structure a musical sort of Broadway evening. But by the time we got to that first performance, I had a backlight behind me. And as I walked up the stairs to make my entrance on the set,
I remember.
My shadow was actually thrown against the audience. So I actually saw them before they saw me. And it was the most bizarre feeling, because I'd grown accustomed to people knowing me because of the musicals I'd done, not because they knew my name. And they were all there to see me, not the shows that I'd done. And that was the most terrifying and gratifying experience at the same time, because you then go, okay, now you have to do this thing. You've been planning it, it's been on paper, you can, have as many meetings as you like, but now you actually have to do it.
Exactly.
And it was terrifying.
The day starts, the day ends, time crawls by, night steals in, pacing the floor. The moments creep, yet I can't bear to sleep till I hear you sing. And weeks pass and months pass, seasons fly, still you don't walk through the door. And in a haze I count the silent days till I hear you sing once more. And sometimes at night time I dream that you are there, but wake holding nothing but the empty air. And years come and years go, time runs dry, still I ache down to the core. My broken soul can't be alive and whole till I hear you sing once more. And music, your music, it teases at my ear. I turn and it fades away, and you're not here. Let hopes pass, let dreams pass, let them die. Without you, what are they for? I'll always feel no more than halfway real till I hear you sing once more.
It's the Musical Madness Hour with Mike B on Qube Radio. Keep it Qube.
Now, you mentioned about Sweeney, which you performed as Sweeney Todd back in 2015, where I remember you had to grow quite an astounding beard and you had to shave off your head, and
Yeah.
it was the Jonathan none of us probably expected. We saw the advertising posters and we thought, what's happened?
Yeah.
But I mean, you did the role justice. But what I want to find out from you is for anybody that's been to your one-man show or somebody that hasn't, go to Jonathan's website and get one of his Stage by Stage Unplugged, which not only has the songs, but you talk the intros and everything, where and you'll find out that you're actually quite comical in that sense. But now Sweeney Todd is the complete opposite. He's a dark character. He's dealing with a lot of stuff. What was it like to get yourself into such a dark character when generally you're, in those sort of things, you're quite comical?
Comedy is the way I settle things down to even out the playing field. And yes, by that point, 2015, I'd done a number of one-man shows where comedy and making the audience laugh, I should say, not comedy, became not a trademark, but an expectation. So Sweeney came along in the same year that I'd done West Side Story and From the Footlights, and then I was Sweeney. It was one hell of a year.
Yes.
So it was tricky initially to spend the first 15 minutes of the show feeling the audience go, why isn't he making us laugh? And I had to commit to that. And Sweeney has one or two slightly comical moments, but Mrs. Lovett is the comic relief.
Correct.
And she's only as funny as, stoic Sweeney is. So it's all a balancing act, a partner. The wonderful Sharon Williams-Ross. And I think I had to stop feeling guilty about wanting to present a different side of my abilities to an audience. Because it's all very well giving people what they want all the time, but if you do that one too many times, you become boring. And that's the one thing we can't afford to be in this business. So eventually I went with it, and it paid off in so many ways. The most important being, I developed a confidence in trying new things. And, Sweeney Todd is as dangerous and as out there as you can get for a South African audience who's accustomed to light entertainment.
Correct.
Now you bring a bloodthirsty barber who's killing people and his friends turning him into pies. We had to extend in Johannesburg because people couldn't get enough of it. People were screaming with laughter every time I'd slag somebody in Act 2 in the second Joanna number. I kill about 4 or 5 people. And at the end of it, a father comes in with his daughter, and I spare the father because he brings his daughter with him. The peals of laughter was just bizarre. And it wasn't me.
Exactly.
It was the situation that was only working because I was playing it for real. And I'm so glad you say you didn't recognize, because the other thing is I didn't want to present an aesthetic that people expected. That's why I said, how can I change myself to the point that I'm unrecognizable? So I went to gym. I looked like a brute. I had this bald head because historically, prisoners at that time had their head shaved to prevent lice. So it made sense if you're from a penal colony in Australia. And then I grew the beard because that's another way to change your face. And it was wonderful because people, when we started the show, they didn't go, okay, let's see what Jonathan's going to do. They'd go, okay, who is Sweeney?
I feel you, Joanna. I feel you. Do they think that walls can hide you? Even now I'm at your window. I am in the dark beside you, buried sweetly in your yellow hair, Joanna. And are you beautiful and pale with yellow hair like her? I'd want you beautiful and pale the way I dreamed you were, Joanna. And if you're beautiful, what then with yellow hair like wheat? I think we shall not meet again, my little dove, my sweet Joanna. Goodbye, Joanna, you're gone and yet you're mine. I'm fine, Joanna, I'm fine. Pretty women, fascinating, sipping coffee, dancing. Pretty women are a wonder. Pretty women sitting in the window or standing on the stair. Something in them cheers the air. And if I never hear your voice, my turtle dove, my dear, I still have reason to rejoice. The way ahead is clear, Joanna. And in that darkness when I'm blind with what I can't forget, it's always morning in my mind, my little lamb, my pet, Joanna. You stay, Joanna, the way I dreamed you are. Oh, look, Joanna, a star. A shooting star. And though I'll think of you, I guess, until the day I die, I think I'll miss you less and less as every day goes by, Joanna. And you'd be beautiful and pale and look too much like her. If only angels could prevail, we'd be the way we were, Joanna. Wake up, Joanna, another bright red day. We learn, Joanna, to say
We've spoken about the CDs, we've spoken about the roles, but now you have quite a number of CDs out, don't you? And you've got you've got a brand new one releasing on the 15th, which I think is Friday.
It's a Thursday, close enough.
Thursday.
Yeah, next Thursday.
So next week Thursday. Now this is another live recorded CD.
Yes. Well, I mean, it was a concert that I did on the 2nd and 3rd of January this year. Yeah. Having just come out of a year of nothing, and you know, we were pretty much one of the only live events in the world. I decided to record it because it was an important event to capture, because music was still not dead, quite frankly. And what's amazing about that concert is, again, I'm pushing boundaries. I'm singing things that I'll never be able to sing. I'm singing lady songs. I'm singing duets. But aside from everything, you can feel how the energy in that room was palpable, because I think it took a year of cold turkey from the theatre to make people realize just how important it actually is to them. It's a 40-piece orchestra, over 20 songs from all the musicals. All the details are on my Instagram, but it's also through my website, jonathanroxmouth.com.
This is Qube Radio, playing the very best music mixes online, on app, and on Facebook. Wherever you go, keep it Qube.
Now, you mentioned you're going to announce a date very, very soon. How can our listeners find out that date? Obviously, by following you on various social sites. What's your handles?
My website is the most reliable, because that's where you can actually order it, jonathanroxmouth.com. But on Instagram, I'm J Roxmouth, and on Facebook, I'm Jonathan Roxmouth.
Now, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I mean, I could sit and chat with you for hours and hours about all the songs, all the roles you've played. We've got to try and fit this as close to an hour as possible.
Okay.
But I'm going to close it off with probably one of, I mean, you've got many notable roles in my head that stick with me, but I think the one that tops it just below Phantom, but is Pharaoh in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. We're gonna close it with 7 Fat Cows, but talk to me about the role of Pharaoh that you played back in 2016.
You know, Pharaoh in Joseph is a faux Elvis character. You know, Song of the King, it's that king. So I was basically given free reign to be as revolting as I wanted to be. Cheesy. You think about Farrah, and he's kind of a second-rate singer in a third-rate nightclub in Las Vegas. That's kind of what we're dealing with. But he's funny, and he's just dumb. And I had a lot of fun because I was able to do things that I would never, ever do in real life. And, his number, Song of the King, we done so many times in the traditional Elvis style. So when my Lloyd Webber came album, I used to be able to speak English. When the My Lloyd Webber album came along, I said to Brian, who was arranging it, I said, somehow I want to do a different version of it. So it's 7 Fat Cows and in brackets, Song of the King. So I said to Brian, let's do a kind of swung version and call it Song of the Swing. All I want you to do is find a way to get the Nina Simone intro in with My Baby Just Cares For Me. And what came out of that recording session was something I still love to perform. And the guys playing on this particular track are called the Brass Holes. They're the brass section I always use in South Africa for my concerts. And the main trumpeter is Adam Howard, who is currently mixing Jonathan Roxmouth Live in Soul, my latest album. So it's a great full circle.
We've kept that little interlude in the song, so the Qubers will be able to experience it.
Fantastic. Then they'll hear him being his normal naughty self.
Well, Jonathan, thank you ever so much for meeting with me.
Thank you, Michael. So nice to connect with you after all those years.
Isn't he just an absolute legend? I would go as far as to say he is South Africa's version of Michael Crawford. True story. Now, don't forget to head on over to www.jonathanroxmouth.com, where you can purchase digital as well as hard copies of his albums, including his upcoming album, Jonathan Roxmouth Live in Soul, to be released on Thursday, the 15th of April. And then just a reminder of those socials. On Instagram, he is at jroxmouth, and on Facebook, he is Jonathan Roxmouth. We are going to be kicking off the end of the Weekend All Request Show in just a few minutes' time. I know it's a bit later than usual, but it was so worth it. So do make sure you head on over to the Qube Radio Social Chat Facebook page and let me know what songs you want to hear. And this evening, I'm once again joined by the hilarious Matt. So to end off our musical madness hour for this evening, here is Jonathan Roxmouth with 7 Fat Cows, Pharaoh's Song of the Swing.
A 1, a 2, you know what to do. Well, I was wandering along by the banks of a river when 7 fat cows came up out of the Nile, ba-da-da. And right behind these vine-healthy animals came 7 other cows that were skinny and vile, ba-dee-da. Then the thin cows ate the fat cows, which I thought would do them good, ba-dee-bow. But it didn't make them fatter like such a monster supper should. 'Cause the thin cows were as thin as they had ever been. Well, this dream has got me baffled. Hey, Joseph, what does it mean? Now, you know that kings ain't stupid, but I don't have a clue. So don't be cruel, Joseph. Help me now, I'm begging you. Well, I was standing doing nothing in a field out of town when I saw 7 beautiful ears of corn, ba-da-da. Well, they were ripe, they were golden, but you guessed it, right behind them came up 7 other ears that were tattered and torn to beyond. And then the bad corn ate the good corn, and they came up right behind, yes they did. But now, Joseph, here's the punchline, it's really gonna blow your mind. 'Cause the bad corn was as bad as it had ever been. Well, this dream has got me baffled. Hey, Joseph, what does it mean? That was fun. Thank you very much.
this the right time to ask a question? Because we're all confused here, I can tell you. Full house, well done, by the way. Not so sure about the guitar solo, but let's not go there. It's the lyrics, man. The ears of corn, I think we get. Paul Rodgers doesn't. But the 7 fat cows. John, what's it all about, man?
Well, as charming as this interlude was, I'll tell you after the show, but don't worry about it for now. We can do the next one. Because what I love most about Joseph... Well, I was wandering along by the banks of a river where 7 fat cows came up out of the Nile, ba-da-da. And right behind these fine, healthy animals, 7 other cows that was skinny and vile, ba-da-da. Come on, balcony. And then the thin cows ate the fat cows, which I thought would do them good, but-dee-da. But it didn't make them fatter like such a monster summer should, oh no. Cause the thin cows were as thin as they had ever been. Well, this dream has got me all shook up, treat me nice, tell me what it means. You know that kings ain't stupid, but I don't have a clue. So don't be cruel, Joseph, help me now, I'm begging you. Well, I was standing doing nothing in a field out of town when I saw 7 beautiful ears of corn, ba-da-da. Well, they were ripe, they were golden, but you guessed it right behind them came up 7 other ears that were tattered and torn to be young. And then the bad one ain't the good come in, they came up right behind, yes they did. But now Joseph, here's the punchline, it's really gonna blow your mind, flip your lid. Well, the bad one was as bad as it had ever been. Well, this train has got me all shook up and treat me nice and tell me what it means.